All right. Welcome back to 755 Forever. I'm David O'Brien, Braves writer at The Athletic, with my co-host, Eric O'Flaherty, former Braves reliever. What's going on, Eric?
What's up?
Well, man, doubleheader today. That shouldn't have happened because the Braves should have played this game Saturday night. That was the worst. That was the worst cancellation of a game. And we can get into all the reasons it was happened. They would never say this, but that's what happens when you have all these national TV contracts and
Hmm.
these exclusive slots. Okay, one, you had Fox. Then we'll get to today because I want to talk about Chris Sale. I mean, this guy's been phenomenal. But I just thought the people that got screwed Saturday. Yeah, it's bad for the players because it's getaway day and they haven't played a doubleheader today. They go to Chicago. They're going to get there tonight. Then they got two night games, then a day game and getaway to Pittsburgh. Not even going to go out and get a steak dinner, which is in Chicago. That's kind of tradition, you know. Go out and get a
Yeah,
good meal in Chicago or two. Braves have had days where they are times where they've had all three day games on a
day
weekend
games.
series. This
That's
time
the
it's two
best.
night games, and you don't even get there on Monday night like you would normally if it's late in the afternoon. Instead, you get there too late to go do anything. But anyway, the people that got screwed are the fans, because this is one of those teams that has a large regional fan base, kind of like the Royals do, the Rockies do when they're good, Dodgers, of course. But I mean, a huge people come from all over the South to see the Braves play. But most people can't afford to go to many games a year. So you plan a vacation, you plan a weekend trip, you go to a weekend game. Padres are in town. Okay,
Yeah, and
that's
you can do
good.
other things too if you're bringing the family. So it might just be
Exactly.
one game. Yeah.
So you get tickets for one game or a weekend game. So you drive from Tennessee or North Carolina. I had many people tell me these anecdotes. That's why I bring it up. One guy brought his mom down with her doctor. They drove 4 hours. You come down to the game, you look at the forecast. It's not good, but nobody says it's canceled. There's no indication it's going to be. So you drive down from 4 or 5 hours away and you get here and they open the gates. The forecast is terrible all day. It was terrible, but they get everybody there, and you got to go. You got your tickets. You
Yeah.
can't not use them. You're like, okay, well the game's on,
Yeah.
so you go there. You sit there, and the game's supposed to start at 7:20 or 7:15, whatever it was that night. And at the time, the rain was still at least 45 minutes to an hour away on the forecast. Forecast has been great all day. It's been accurate. So they don't start the game because of that. You don't want to lose your starting pitcher. You don't want to start and then stop the game. But in this case, it was not going to rain for like 45 minutes minimum. And that's what happened. It rained like 45 minutes later. In the pitch clock era, you can get in 3 innings in 45 minutes. You
Really?
know, we had a shutout pitched in an hour and 52 minutes or 54 minutes, what Freed did. And that was not normal, but you can easily get in if it goes an hour, say that rain doesn't show up for an hour instead of 45 minutes, you might be able to get 4.5 innings in with the Braves giving a lead. That's a complete game.
That's nuts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they didn't start the game, right? So then the rain comes like 45 to 50 minutes later. It started and it looked like it was going to last like 2 hours or whatever, right? They banged the game after like 30, 40, about 40 minutes of rain, 30 minutes of rain, maybe 40. They banged the game and said, sorry, after telling people all night, the game's not going to start due to inclement weather in the area. We will keep you updated, blah, blah, blah. Most people stayed. Their place was close to sold out. And it was people having a party, having a good time, listening to
Yeah.
music, drinking, of course, buying tons of
Yeah.
food or refreshments, jerseys.
That's why the gates got to open. I mean,
Right. They
that's
sell a
why they
lot
have
of
to
they
get the,
sell
yeah.
a lot of stuff. The batteries hop and everything.
Yeah.
So what happens? They bang the game after about 40 minutes of rain. They cancel it. Everybody's like, boo, whatever, you know. Okay, we just sat around for 3 or 4 hours from the time you got there till the time that was canceled after whatever it was. I don't know. Maybe it was 45 minutes, whatever. Literally within 10 to 15 minutes of them canceling the game, the rain stopped. And it did
Never
not
came
rain
back.
another drop all night. I drove home with never turned on my windshield wipers. And it was beautiful too after the rain went through. It was a cool night, dry.
How hard did it come down when it was raining? Was the
It
field
wasn't
just,
that hard. It was like
oh
really
man.
light for the first, when it started, it was like 10 to 15 minutes when you would not have stopped the game that was underway. We've seen them play at hard rain where the
Yeah.
puddles formed on the infield. It wasn't like that for at least 20 minutes they could have got in the rain. Then they canceled it. Never poured like they thought it was going to do. It didn't last nearly as long as they thought it was going to. They canceled the game. So what happens? Here's where the fans get screwed again. Because if you came down for that game, they say you can use your tickets for the second game of Monday's doubleheader.
Yeah. Yeah,
Now,
sorry.
I'm sure if you complained, they would give you a refund, but that's not what they say to you. And you'd have to be assertive and call and go, I want my money back. They should just tell everybody refund unless you want to use your ticket. Because who's going to stay till Monday that's came from out of town? And 90% of the people have to work Monday. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
pain
what I
in
was
the ass to
thinking.
even go Sunday night, much less a Monday game, day game or night game. Anyway, that's my rant. I just thought they mishandled it. And it's not just the Braves. Teams do it all around the league. And here's the problem. Saturday night, Fox has that exclusive rights to that game, right? I'm sure the Fox people didn't want to sit around potentially for like 5 hours if they started the game, played like 3 innings, whatever, and they had to stop it for the rain delay of maybe 2 hours. They can't just leave the game. They have to show the
Yeah.
conclusion, right? So they might have been there for 5 hours. So you're not going to make them do that. So you bang the game. Then you could not, the logical thing would, under normal circumstances, to do would have been play a doubleheader Sunday.
Yeah.
Turns out the weather is beautiful Sunday. No rain. Gorgeous, right? The initial forecast said it might rain Sunday, but it wasn't a heavy rain. It wasn't a heavy chance of rain. But they didn't schedule the dang Sunday. Because why? Because if you had a day game and you had a rain delay, it would bleed into that Sunday night. This happened to be a Sunday night ESPN game. And you can't bleed the day game into ESPN's Sunday night slot. So we sat around a beautiful weather all day Sunday. You could have played a baseball game. So instead of doing that, you play 2 on getaway day for both teams' getaway day.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what goes into it all, but we would always be shaking our heads, we can play in this, or why have we not started yet? And there's so many times as a player where you're like, why have we not banged this? Because you can look outside, you can look at the radar, and you can just see like the puddles at second base or puddles in the outfield, whatever it is. And
keep playing.
My least favorite was sitting around for 3 hours before they banged it, before they called it.
Yeah.
It's so nice as a player if because you don't get a lot of days off. So if it's ever,
right.
And this never happened, but the few times it did, where it was like the game was called before 7 o'clock, it was amazing.
We've had a few of those this year.
Yeah.
We had one in New York that was banged as I was getting in my Uber to go to the ballpark. It was banged, turned around, went back to the hotel.
Yep.
But yeah, so the players get all day, I think they told the players before that bus had even left. So they got it all day instead of going out to Queens. And we had one here that was banged earlier because it was just the forecast was like 95% heavy rain all night. There was no way they were going to play. So
yeah,
fortunately,
it's so nice when it works out like that. But yeah, I mean, you're always trying to get the gates open. It feels like, at least get the gates open and have people buy beer for a few hours.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, the doubleheader today. The Braves lose the first 3 games to San Diego. We've talked about the offense. It's been sputtering. They've been getting great pitching. Bryce Elder, exception. He has not pitched very well. And they got rocked on Sunday night. Once again, ESPN's had 3 games this year. 2 pitched by Bryce Elder, 1 by Vines. With the great pitchers the Braves had, none of them have started those 3 games. Although Elder pitched well in that one in New York was a close game, actually. But so he got rocked. It was a terrible game on ESPN. Today, the Braves needed to win both games to salvage a split. They lose the first game when Ronaldo Lopez pitched great again. I mean, this guy has been steady all year. And what was weird was they jump out to a lead. They're like 19-1 or something when they lead going in the 7th, 8th inning. And the best reliever they've had this year has been Joe Jimenez. We talked about that. 3 of the 4 runs he had given up came in 1 game. His ERA in the other games was like under 1. What happens today? He has his first bad outing of the year, gives up 4 runs in the 8th inning after they had given up 2 before that. The 5-run lead had turned to 5-2. He gives up 4 in the 8th, and they lose 6-5. That was a soul crusher, man. And you were fortunate to have Chris Sale pitching in the nightcap.
Yeah. Yeah. Sweep would have been real rough. But I mean, that's what So basically 2 games, 2 bad games he's had, and
Yeah.
I don't know what his numbers are at right now,
And the one
probably
was
three.
three infield singles, three infield hits that
That's
were like
right. I remember that one. That
35
was
miles an hour or
brutal.
less.
Yeah, but that's so when I used to come home from the season, I would sit around and eat pizza, have a few beers, and just chill for about 10 days, and I would lose 10 to 15 pounds sitting on the couch. And I never really understood it until I talked to this like nutritionist person. They said that, when you're under stress, you have this hormone called cortisol that you release and it makes you hold on to
Uh-huh.
fat and water. And so, long story short, that's kind of like that's the stress every day, day in, day out as a reliever. You can't take a day off. And I'm not saying he took a day off, but you have one
Yeah.
bad day. You go out there in a 9-1 game and maybe you weren't going to pitch, but we need somebody, and you give up a 5 spot to the Marlins. You got to work 3 months to get rid of that.
Yeah.
You got to have 3 good months because you're going to give up your ones and twos no matter what. When you give up that 5 or 6 spot as a reliever, or even a four, a three kills you. A four hurts really bad, but you get above 5 and 6, it's like, my first half is a
Yeah.
wash. So that's like the stress of being a reliever day in, day out is every day you got to be ready, and you might not pitch or you might, but every day could be the day that ruins your season. And like if you look at a hitter or even a starting pitcher, you're going to get enough innings where that
Right.
that one bad inning doesn't kill you.
Right. Look at Max.
Yeah, exactly. A hitter goes 0 for 4. You got to have like 3, 4, 5, 6 bad days, a bad week to really hurt your numbers once you get deep in the season. But I mean, I had a year 2007. It was like early August. I had a 2 something ERA and I finished with a 4.5. So I just got into a little bit of a rut. But that's the stress every day as a reliever. Like today could be a day that ruins
He,
my season.
he had beside that inning where he gave up the three nothing hits. One was a cue shot,
Yep.
one was a bunt, and two were infield off the end of the bat. That was the only day he had only had one other day where he gave up more than one hit in an inning before today.
Yeah.
One other day. And in May, in 5 May outings, he had given up one hit in 5 innings, 5 scoreless innings. One hit. Today was just that day. He had a 1.59 ERA before today. It went up almost 2 runs.
Yeah.
Any all-star
Yeah.
consideration out the window. Now he's 3.50. And as a non-closer, the only way you have a chance to make the all-star team as a reliever is to have a
You got to be sporting
puny
a low
ERA.
one. Yeah.
Tons of strikeouts. Yeah. Like
It's tough for
Jesse
him too
last year.
because he has that invisible. He has the 95, 96 that plays up to 100. And so you're going to be aggressive with that. And he gets
Yeah.
rewarded for it. He's got the nice tight slider. And so he just challenges, 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 goes after hitters. And then one day it's not invisible. You don't
Yeah.
know. You never know until it's too late. You give up 1 or 2 hits. It's like, all right, I'm going to keep chucking. And then four
Yeah.
spot.
This was the first time he's really gotten hit.
Yeah.
3 hits, 2 walks, 4 runs in an inning.
Yep.
So he went from 1.59 to 3.50 in one inning.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people
And
were,
if he has a great month from here, he can
yeah.
maybe get under 3 or mid to high 2s.
I remember Smoltz when he was closed and had started the year with like a terrible game, like one of his first outings was terrible, gave up tons of runs. And Smoltz, he would say, I gotta keep doing this just to get it down to under 2. He was like dealing the rest of the year. Gave
Yep.
up, no, he was incredible. And he was fighting like that one outing the rest of the year, basically.
I had
And
that year in 2012 where I just got wrecked in the first month. And I still had probably like a mid 5 or something like that in May or something like that. But I went scoreless in the second half of the season. Still almost finished with a 2 ERA.
so the one year where you had the sub 1 ERA, which was like a record or something at the time for that many appearances,
Never had that
you
day.
you couldn't have one bad outing like he had
No.
today and still keep it under 1.
I don't think. I mean, he probably could because he's at like. I mean, but he'd have to do something incredible to have something like in the
Yeah,
low ones now.
give up maybe 1 run the rest of the year.
Because if you think about it, if you want to have a 1 ERA, you got to go 9 innings, 1 run. So that's 36
Yeah.
scoreless he's got to go to have a 1. And how
Yeah.
long does it take to throw 36 out of the pen?
What a life. What a stressful life, man.
It was.
Jesus.
I'm telling you, I'd come home and just be a pile of shit. I'm just laying on the couch watching Netflix, eating pizza and doing nothing. And people would ask me like, "What'd you do to lose that weight?" And
and,
just I'm relaxed.
And this fucking guy's been great all year. And
Yep.
people are, I understand fans are pissed right now, so they get
Yeah.
frustrated. And the ones on social media are maybe not as reasonable. Some of them, not all, or maybe not as reasonable as the fans that are at the ballpark or whatever. So what are they doing? I mean, I understand they're really frustrated because they haven't been so bad, but they're bitching about the way Snit handled the eighth inning. A couple of guys were. I'm like, at eighth inning and 5-2 lead, what are you going to do? You don't want to run Joe Jimenez out there, or you want to pull him? They say they should have pulled him, brought in Aaron Bummer. Joe Jimenez gets ground balls. He doesn't give up hits. You want to let your best
Yeah.
reliever work out of the inning. It's not like he gave up a 3-run homer, or like he was
Yeah.
walking the yard.
I
And
wasn't watching,
also,
but if it's like a lot of early hard contact and walks, it can pile up quick.
and it's the first game of a doubleheader and the
Yep.
second game of a 17 games in 17 days. You already used Mentor in this game. You're going to bring in Pierce Johnson and use all three setup guys in one game before you got to play another one in an
Yeah, you
hour and a
got game
half.
two. And they won't throw guys in both games anymore.
No, nobody does anymore. Maybe somebody old school might do that with a closer, but hardly anybody does. The Braves certainly aren't going to. So people, and now the guy was like, "Yo, you got to worry about the game in front of you winning and not the rest of them." No, you also got to worry about the game that's coming up in 2 hours too. I know what you're saying. You can't think down the line, but Snit
No, if
has
he
made it
runs through the
clear.
whole pen and then you got
Excuse me.
Bummer closing and he has a rough outing
Right,
because we used everybody to get through this one, then what are they going to say?
right.
Look how
Snit's got,
stupid he was. You had a 3-run lead and burnt through the whole pen.
in the second game, you didn't even have a long guy. You couldn't have used um, the Let Kerr. You couldn't have used him. You just used him for 3 and a third innings.
Yep.
So if you'd used all your setup guys and everybody in the first game, then you need it. And then Sale gets knocked out and has to leave for some reason in the third inning.
Yeah.
So you got
We're
to
throwing
think about that
position
stuff.
players.
I know you got to do everything you can to win that day, but you've also got to manage a bullpen with this stretch. This is your first really brutal stretch of the year. You've had all these off days and everything, rainouts. This is a brutal stretch coming up, and you can't run your bullpen ragged in the first game of a doubleheader when you're getting ready to go on a 6 games and 6 days trip.
Then you got to
Anyway,
explain to the guy that's been amazing all year why you're
right,
yanking him. And then if that
right,
backfires,
yeah,
I mean, managing the bullpen's just everything's easy in hindsight. Like
yeah. You get ripped for it. Every
no matter
every
what you
manager
do.
gets ripped for it, with exception of maybe Bochy had a magic touch for a lot of years in San
Yeah.
Francisco. But even he was getting ripped early last year when the Rangers were getting knocked around. So anyway, we'll get to Sale. The good news for the Braves the last couple of days is Austin Riley. When it looked like, oh, this injury report is brought to you by Gerber and Holder, attorneys who only represent injured workers. Sponsoring this injury report, just like these Braves. If you've been hurt on the job, go to www.gerberholderlaw.com. That's www.gerberholderlaw.com. If you're injured on the job, whatever, call them, man. They'll take care of you. So Austin Riley, just this side, which is he described it as an intercostal, not an oblique, but it's right below the rib cage, and he was still having soreness a week after he did it that Sunday in New York. And then or a week later, he still was having some, even though it was better every day. So the Braves were getting to the point. Snit said, if it doesn't go away, we're gonna have to put him on the IL, even though they hated that because they could only do it backdated 3 days. He ended up missing more than 2 weeks for this thing they thought was going to take 2 or 3 days. So, but he came in Sunday, he didn't have any soreness anymore. So they're still being careful. I hadn't cleared him to swing a bat, but he did all full like infield drills today and everything. I would think he'd start swinging a bat the next day or two. So he'll go on the trip. I would guess. I still don't think he can go from that to playing in the next 3 days in Chicago, but I would think he'd play in Pittsburgh. The good news is he's not going to need to go on the IL. It did get better. So, and then the other great news is that Sean Murphy, is finally beginning his rehab assignment with Gwinnett on Tuesday. Braves leaving town. He's going to go to Gwinnett. Here we are at almost 2 months since he strained that
Yeah.
oblique. Oblique's going to be tricky,
Yeah,
and
that's
he
why they
takes
got to
some.
be careful with Austin.
Yeah, and they both take big cuts, and
Yeah,
Murphy takes huge cuts.
the biggest.
Yeah.
Nobody
So,
swings harder than him. Maybe
but
Baez.
he's been swinging and taking batting practice, no problem. So I wouldn't think it would be a long rehab stint for Murphy, and I would think that when they get back from Pittsburgh, I would expect he'll be in a lineup a week from now.
I mean,
I
that
think
would
that's
be,
all it'll take. And that'll be big because as great as Trump has played as a catcher brought up from AAA, and he's really good defensively, the pitchers trust him like they do Darno, and it's great. Darno's played he's played his typical self, but he
yeah,
went on the IL or he was out with the what they thought was going to be a concussion. Thank God it wasn't. It would have been his fifth. He back and caught today and took another foul ball off the face mask, by the way. Everybody had to have cringed, but he stayed no problem. But as good as Trump has been filling in, it's still not the same. If you look at the offense production, they are right in the middle of the MLB this year, in basically an average homers, RBIs, and all that, right in the middle. And last year, they led the majors in homers and were second in RBI. They had like 102 RBIs from catchers last year and 32 homers, 21 of those in 108 games by Murphy. People forget how good he is, and especially in that
yeah.
first half last year when he made the All-Star team.
And that power bat, like the power depth of this lineup is what's, I think, drains pitchers so much.
And they haven't had that so far this year.
Not as much, yeah. And with him out, and Kelnick hasn't hit for power yet. Trump, that
Everybody's been
bottom,
struggling.
you get to that bottom half, and then yeah, you get to the top, and the guys haven't that you've expected haven't hit like they normally do.
Right. With
So it's a little
Ozuna's the
less
only guy that
stressful.
has.
Yeah, I mean it's a little less stressful.
So Ozuna's the only guy that's kept it going. And really, he just had a brief lull, but it was nothing. I mean, he had two more homers today. So he's back leading the NL with 14, leading the majors in RBIs. So he's picked up a lot of those RBIs that Olson has not been driving in this year. Olson, after only hitting 3 homers in the first month and a half of the season, month and a half plus, has 3 in the last 10 days. He had another one today. Really good sign. And we've talked about his hard hit rate and squaring up the ball. Unlike Riley and Acuna, his numbers were where they were last year. The expected average, expected slugging percentage were all really high. For those who aren't maybe into analytics, that's one that doesn't really. I mean, that's a good analytic. That's a good indication when you're hitting the ball just as hard as you did last year.
Yeah,
That's just getting bad luck for the most
that's so
part.
much easier to swallow too than I'm getting sawed off. I'm popping
Right.
balls up. Like it's easy to. I mean, now how long it goes on, it probably starts to get pretty draining. But when you're just looking at your swing and your performance and trying to, have some good games, it's a lot easier to swallow that game where it's like, well, I hit 4 balls hard. I
Right.
did what I could. Than the
Then,
opposite, where
then what
my
Acuna's
swing's
been
just,
doing.
yeah, I'm just swinging and missing pitches. That's why he gave that answer he gave the other day.
Yeah, he's been
But I'm
last
just
year.
not
He
good right now.
crushed fastballs in the upper third of the strike zone. The numbers are way down on those fastballs up in the zone that he was crushing last year. This year's been fouling them off, missing them, sliders too. So today was a really good sign for Acuna. He was really candid with us. He missed a fly ball and might have lost in the lights a little bit, went off the heel of his glove, and he didn't make any excuses for it 2 nights ago. He said, I should have caught it though. It looked funky. He kind of went down. Didn't look like he ever lost it in the lights, but he went down like he did, was trying to keep it below the line of the lights, and it
Yeah.
went off his glove. It just bounced out. So he said, I should have caught it. And then regarding, hitting the ball hard this year, not hitting the ball as hard as he did last year, are you just missing by a little bit? And he said, I don't know what to tell you. I've just not been good because I have not been good. So far, I'm not very good. That's what he said. He
Yeah.
was candid. So he goes out today, a day later, doubleheader, had 3 hits in the first game, including a double, looked really good. And then in the nightcap, he starts, it leads off with a double and stretches into a triple with hustle, really alert. I thought that was a good sign because he could be down on himself and
Yeah.
that answered, and he wasn't. He came out, then he could have had another double or more on a ball that Tatis crashed against the right field wall catching. So that would have been 5 hits today, including 3 extra base hits. So
Yeah.
that's a real good sign. I mean, we talked about last year. As Acuna goes, the offense goes. That was the case last
100%.
year.
Yeah. I agree with that so much. I think whenever he gets hot, I mean, it's going to take pressure off everybody and put so much more pressure on the pitcher.
Yeah,
We talked about it the whole year, just what it is. When I was in the game, it was your first hitter, the leadoff guy was going to pepper a ball the other
right,
way and try to maybe steal a base or
right.
something. And the 2-hole guy was good at hitting runs, but you didn't face a power threat until the 3-4 hole. Now it's, I mean, when he's on,
Yeah,
you have to be locked in and pitching carefully from the first pitch of the
from
game.
pitch one.
Yeah. And when they had that depth where that went all the way down to 8,
Right,
9, I mean, Harris was hitting in the 9 hole. I mean, you have
right.
that going on. It's just exhausting as a pitcher.
So, I mean, as bad as this offense has been, and it's been pretty damn bad for the last month, those are signs of like if Elson is doing his thing, 3 homers the last 10 days, if he gets going like that again, Ozuna and him back-to-back homers today. Ozuna has not backed off at all. Riley comes back. That IL stint might have been, or not an IL stint, but a week away, 10 days it'll be away or whatever. Could end up being good for him as mentally or whatever when he comes back in. If
Especially
Acuna
not being able
gets
to swing the bat. You take time off,
exactly
and sometimes there's a theory for me that always played was it's hard to forget that muscle memory. Swinging every day, you just keep repeating the same
right,
flaw, and then you take a step back, and things they might feel a little off, but you also feel things you weren't feeling because you haven't picked up the bat in that many days, and you can't swing right now.
and he's one of those guys like Olson that plays every day.
Yep.
So when they
Yep.
struggle, Snit ain't going to take him out unless it's a really long slump like last year. Olson at late in September was
Yeah.
slumping so bad. I think it was last year, yeah, that he sat him one day and he came back the next day and crushed. It
Yep.
was all he needed. It seemed like got out of the doldrums he was in. So this might be good for Riley when he comes back. He was showing some signs of breaking out of his funk. Um, so what I'm saying is, as bad as this offense has been for a month, it shouldn't surprise anybody if they take off all of a sudden because
No.
they've all those guys haven't forgot how to hit. They've got the
No.
same guys they had a year ago, with the exception of Eddie Rosario, you know,
Yep.
and he didn't do much last year anyway. So they got the same guys. So I fully anticipate because they've been among the league's dregs in the last month offensively, but the pitching has been so good that all you have to do is get the offense even close to what it was last year. And this team
75%.
and this team can chase down the Phillies. I mean, they're 5 games behind. Phillies have played great. Philly's schedule has been, as everybody's talked about, it's been really bad, but they've done what you're supposed to do against lesser teams. They beat them all, beat the hell out of them. But
Hmm.
they've got some tough trips coming up. They haven't taken the trip like the Braves had to Seattle and LA where they went 1-5. They're going to have some trips like that coming up and some tough competition. So the Braves get going, they can reel in, they can make up a 5-game deficit in less than a month.
Yeah, and there's so many players that aren't new to this. I
Yeah,
mean, it's so much harder when you're young to understand that sometimes you just get screwed in baseball. Like if you're Olson, like
yeah,
it's 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 a lot easier to take that. I know I'm hitting the ball hard, but when you have to put up numbers and you're trying to establish your career, and
yeah.
I'm hitting balls hard and I see 210 up there or whatever it is, that's a lot harder to get through your first time. But they got a lot of guys that have been through this a lot of times. Like Riley's gone in and out of so many slumps. Same with Olson. Acuna, this is his first time, I think. I mean, he had
Yeah.
the
For
first year
this
tough
long, yeah.
for like he came back from the injury and really had a rough go that first year. But you still have the injury, and I'm not 100% to fall back on. But this is the first time where it's like I feel good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just not hitting the ball. And
First time, yeah.
mentally, the more you go through it, the easier it is to trust.
So they've scored 5 runs, more than 5 runs, one time in the last 20 games.
Yeah, you used to have a 5-run inning once every two games.
Exactly. They've averaged 3 point nothing, exactly 3 runs in that stretch while hitting 218 and hitting 17 homers. They've gone 9-11 in that stretch despite that offense. And despite striking out a ton till today, they had struck out double digits 4 straight games and 6 out of 9 before the nightcap today, where they didn't strike out early at like 3 or 4 times, I think. But they've been doing it because the pitching has been so good,
Yeah.
and especially Chris Sale and Lopez and Fried lately. When you're getting starts like that, man, you get some offense going, and they're gonna pull off. They're gonna go on one of those 15-5 runs
Yep.
easily if they just start getting some offense. If they keep getting this pitching, I can't overstate how good Chris Sale has been. Dude, he throws 7 scoreless again today against the Padres. 5 hits, again, no walks, 9 strikeouts. He's striking out like 9 or 10 every time in this. He's now got a 6-game winning streak. He's got a 1.15 ERA in this last 6 starts and 50 strikeouts with 3 walks in 39 innings during his 6-game winning streak. Last 5 starts, he's got an 0.56 ERA, 37 strikeouts, 1 walk in 25 innings in his last 4 starts, 37 strikeouts and 1 walk in 25 innings.
Yeah, if you're about to face him, you want to watch video from a couple years ago or a different season because you don't want to watch his last 5 starts and just watch. I mean, you'd just be watching him punch
Phenomenal.
everybody out and give up no hits.
Just
And he's not walking
phenomenal.
anybody. And not walking anybody, I mean, when you have his stuff, that's the key.
35, and he's pitching like he's 28 again, like he was when he was top
Yeah.
5 Cy Young for 6 straight years.
And that's what made you feel good about him was the stuff was still there when
Yeah.
he was pitching last year.
Yeah. When he made his 15, he had 15 straight, a run of 15 starts where he was back close to his old self after the 5 bad ones at the start of the year. And an IL stint in the middle of that came back, with the scapula thing, came back and still good. But this year he's taken it back to where he used to be before Tommy John. I mean,
Yeah.
he's just dotting the corners too, up in the zone, hitting the inside corner, outside corner. Hitters are just like, and you look at the thing and they don't think it's a strike. You look and he's hitting it. It is. He's
Yeah.
painting, man. And
His
that
breaking
slider, of
ball.
course,
It's
unhittable.
yeah. It's just, it's funny because I've talked about his angle a lot. And I was thinking yesterday or today when I was watching pitch, I was thinking Bumgarner was having some really good years with that angle at 90, 91.
Yeah.
And Sale's doing it at 97 with, I think, a lot better breaking ball.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers aren't surprising with what he has.
I mean, he's on a run right now that Fried or Strider hasn't even had.
Yeah.
I mean, he is pitching. I looked at the last 30 days because they bring that up on the MLB stat things. They do a last 30 days thing. Last 30 days, he leads the majors in ERA 0.56, 5 starts, 5-0. Leads the majors in WHIP at 0.72 in those 5 starts. Opponents hitting 178, 43 strikeouts, 2 walks in 32 innings with 21 hits, 1 home run in those 5 starts.
Yeah.
It don't get any better than that.
You think about that low arm angle, right? And the high fastball probably looks good and you can't get to it. And his breaking ball starts pretty high and drops, I mean, all the way across the whole zone. He's got to make the plate look so big. And then he's able to throw fastballs into righties for strikes. Like as a lefty, the number one thing you have to be able to do to get righties out is throw fastballs in for strikes. Once they have to respect that side of the plate, you can go backdoor slider off it. You're not back, you can go back foot slider off it, and you can throw a backdoor slider that if they're respecting in for a strike and having to cheat to it, that backdoor slider looks like it's 3 feet off the plate, especially where he's releasing it from, and then it comes back for a strike. So the plate's got to look 6 feet wide.
So he's put himself obviously into the Cy Young.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real early, but right now he's all of a sudden thrust his name into the middle of the Cy Young balloting. If you gave a Cy Young right now, just past a quarter of the season, it would go to Ranger Suarez. He's 8-0 with a 1.37 ERA and 9 starts.
That's pretty good.
0.76 WHIP. He would get it. The dude from Chicago, Shota Imanaga, 0.84 ERA, 9 starts. He's 5-0. 58 strikeouts, 53 innings. But Sale in the last month, I mean, I watched Shota, and he's great with the Cubs. He pitched against the Braves, but they had like 8 or 9 hits against him, I think. It was maybe his worst outing yet. But he's throwing, low 90s, and he's just a pitcher. He carves up his great location, mixes a bunch of pitches and all that. Sale is a more dominant guy, far more than him. I mean, he's right there. And Suarez, too. Suarez is, you can't dismiss what he's done. He's been great this year. But Sale is up there, kind of like Glasnow or Wheeler is the Sale type dominance when they're on their game. But each of those guys has had a bad outing. Wheeler got knocked around one outing. Sale, since that first couple of decent, he had one bad start and the others were okay. And now he's on this run. He's been unbelievable.
I like guys that it's not up to the hitter. It's like
right.
It's not up to them. When he has his stuff like that, it's Chris versus Sale. If he can throw strikes with it and make his pitches, they just got to tip their hat. And that's where I look at when I look at I always like to think, who would I take if I needed a Game 7 win? When you're talking Cy Youngs, you're talking seasons and stuff. And you got to respect somebody putting up numbers regardless of how they're doing it. But you ask me who I want in the game right now, if it's Game 7, there's nobody else the way he's pitching.
I mean, it's like 5 or 6 of the top 7 or 8 pitchers in baseball this year have been in the National League. I
Yeah.
mean, the only one that's even in the group with Suarez, Sale, Glasnow, Jared Jones of Pittsburgh, Shota. Dylan Cease had great numbers until the Braves hit him today. He had his worst outing. Uh, the only guy that's in that group of 7 is Scooble from Detroit, who's 6-0 with a 1.80 and 9 starts. He's got great numbers, 66 strikeouts and 8 walks. The rest of the top 7 are National League guys.
And National League has the DH now, so you can't discount that. It
Right.
used to be an old thing of like
Right. It's the
not
same
wanting
now.
to give National League pitchers credit, but
The same now.
it's
Yeah.
all the same.
So anyway, and Lopez, he got screwed out of a win in that first game, but he pitched great again. I mean, he's just been he and Sale have given them the 1-2 combination that everybody thought they'd get from Strider and Fried. And
Yeah.
Fried's pitched great lately, but they've done every bit as good as you could have possibly hoped Fried and Strider would be this year as a 1-2. Those guys have been that good.
You can't hope for more. I'd
No.
be real interested to hear what opposing hitters are saying about Lopez, because I saw something the other day. He was due for a regression because his FIP or whatever, some stat says he shouldn't be as good as he is with his numbers.
Yeah.
But there's certain guys that have like this late life on their ball, or I can't pick it up. I'd be real interested to know what's allowing him to outperform, peripherals and all that, because he's got to have something. He's not throwing 100 anymore, but guys are missing. He's making pitches, but guys are missing pitches too and mishitting them a lot.
And when he wants to rear back and throw, he's got 97, 98 in the tank.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you talk about bad luck. The guy's got a 1.54 ERA and 8 starts, 107 whip, 201 opponent's average, 44 strikeouts, 17 walks, 46 and 2/3 innings, 2 home runs, and he's got 2 wins. He's
Somebody's
2-1
always
in
got to
8
be that
starts.
guy. There's always one of them on the team.
Max has got 3 wins, and it was terrible in his first 2 starts. But he's got his ERA down to 3.81. I mean, they're 4 guys. They're foursome there. Those ERAs, 2.22 for Sale, 1.54 for Lopez, 3.52 for Charlie in 8 starts, and 3.81 for Max in 9 starts. That's a real solid 4. They just don't have a 5th guy right now. But we'll see.
Yeah,
I think by
you can
midseason they
stomach
could.
that.
One of those young guys could come up.
I'd much rather have a solid 4 and figure out 5 than be
right. Because that's all you need for the
too
postseason.
ridiculous. Number 1 and 2 are just unhittable, but after that, it's a crapshoot. They're in great shape.
Yeah. Anyway, so I know people are really bummed because the Braves are, the record is almost the same as it was last year at this time. It's just the way they're getting there. It's not spectacular with all the home runs and the big innings. So people and dominating opponents.
Comeback wins and
Right. So people are just so down. You would think, I mean, fans from other teams, if they, that have really struggled, have got to be listening to Braves fans right now and going, "Cry me a river." I mean, come on. Yeah. So, people that say things like, they just look like they're lifeless and aren't having fun. I can assure you that mood hasn't changed in that clubhouse. They're fine. They're perfectly fine. These guys are not down on each other. They're not backstabbing. They're not pointing fingers. They're all saying, we know Acuna. We know Ronald Acuna is going to come around. We know when we get rolling, we're going to start doing. They don't feel as dejected as some of the people watching them. No,
I mean, 162 goes by so much faster when you're watching on TV, and the end of the season feels so much closer and all that.
Right.
But this is such a long season. I mean, by the time you get to September, you can't even remember April and May.
You're not a third of the way in yet.
We're there every single day. So you still know as a player how early it is. 5 games doesn't look like a big deal. You don't even check it, really.
And you would rather have, if you had your druthers, you had a choice of either winning games right now 8-5 and 9-6 and having, one starter with an ERA under 4 and like a loaded lineup. You would much rather, we've seen it in the postseason, you would much rather have some really good starting pitchers and a good bullpen.
Question. No
and they've
question
got that. And they're going to start hitting.
That's the least concerning department. You know,
Right.
if you look at the team, they're solid everywhere, but
Right.
you know the offense is going to hit. There's too many good hitters.
Yeah. They just got to keep Sale and Sale healthy, and Lopez, with the innings he hasn't pitched, you got to keep spacing it out, which they're going to do. I told you they're going to call somebody up next week, and they've already done. Vines is up, and if he is not used in relief, I think he'll start Thursday. They could even use two guys to plug in, but they're going to at least plug in one to give those guys. They're going to keep spacing it out, not putting them on regular rest. They're going to be careful.
Yeah, that's still the spot where I look and I'm like, can they keep it up more
Right.
than is I
Right.
don't think is the offense going to keep sucking.
Right.
That you don't ask yourself that if you've watched this team at all, you don't ask yourself that question. When are they?
Yeah.
You might ask when they're going to start hitting, but not are they? You know they're coming on, and
Yeah.
the concern still just can these guys stay healthy for the whole season?
Yeah.
And the pitching's great right now, but like we just talked about, it's a long year, and a lot can happen between now and the end of the year.
I think it's a good sign that they're not getting a little caught up in the Salem mania, and like he's going 101 pitches today, and they could run him out there again for the eighth and have him go to 115, but
No,
they're like, okay, let's stick to the plan,
yeah,
not running him out there every 5 days, do it every 6 or 7 days. Same with Lopez. They know they've seen it. They've seen this movie 2 times in the last 2 years of limping into the playoffs with a rotation that's like held together by baling wire, and they do not
yeah.
want that. And a bullpen that's wheezing.
Yeah,
So
because you're going to face, I mean, no matter how good your offense is, you're going to face a team that's got Gallen or Wheeler or somebody that's just
got good
locked in.
pitching.
And you have to be able to shut an offense down.
Because you look at all the other contenders in the NL, they've all got 2 or 3 really good starting pitchers.
Yep.
And if they stay healthy, that's what you're going to be matched up against. So you better have yours. So, all right. We appreciate it, everybody. We'll talk again from Chicago or the day after Chicago. Well, Chicago's a day game. The last day win Thursday, so we'll probably do this again Thursday night after that day game in Chicago. And that's it.